Goliath.
So good morning, everybody. Welcome to Tanya chapter 18. We did start the chapter last week, and I'm going to go back into it today. So we did the first third of the chapter last week, and we're going to go further now. So chapter 18 is a little bit more of a practical approach to self-mastery. It's very interesting to see how the Alter Rebbe, so practical. You know, he's such a genius of a thinker, but he was really able to relate to those amongst us that have a hard time meditating. It's very interesting that he was able to do that, right? He introduces this whole idea in the first, chapters 9 through 17, the long method to self-mastery, which was through meditation. It was like, look, you meditate, your thoughts will influence your emotion, even if you're emotionally immature. And certainly, I think in a distracted generation that we live in, I really think it's like a plague that we live in. You know, it used to be that eye contact was like taken for granted. But think about the premium, which is eye contact. I mean, you want to talk to someone. I almost want to say to someone, can I put your phone over here so I can look at you while you talk to me? It's crazy. You know, it's really crazy. I don't know how often I talk to people when they're like this. And I just walk away. I can't stand it. I find it so off-putting. We are the most distracted generation. I can't imagine anybody being more distracted than us.
Just wait.
Yeah, right.
Wait 10 years.
It's scary. It's really scary.
I can't even imagine.
It's scary.
Yeah, it will be.
How could be much worse?
Look, I got to tell you, I'm off of social media. I'm not on social media because it's overwhelming to me.
It's so time.
It's just over. I can't deal with it. So I turned it off, and I thank God I have other people to do it for me. But what happened is,
And they just inform him.
no, I'm serious. In terms of marketing, whatever marketing business I need to do.
I have my people.
The thing is, though, we live in a time which is so distracted. Maybe 200 years ago, you wanted to think about something. Okay, take a walk, sit in a tree stump. I'll see you tomorrow.
Go tend the flock.
Yeah, big deal. You know, you can think about it. What else are you going to be doing? You're going to be worrying about what's going on in the White House? You're going to be worrying about an earthquake in New Zealand? No, you don't even know about it. Life was simple. Life was with it, whatever was in my earshot. That's it. Right? I don't know what's going on in the next town. But the Alter Rebbe says, look, there are those amongst us, maybe a majority amongst us, that can't think straight for too long. Thinking is a premium. So he says, again, even within the long way, he said, there were people that couldn't master an emotion. They couldn't master a full-fledged, full-blown emotion. Now, when I say emotion, I just want to expand on this for a moment.
You mean thought?
An emotion. He was talking about emotion. The Alter Rebbe said, we can control. He said, in the long way, the Alter Rebbe says, you can absolutely control what you think about. Nobody can make you or prevent you from thinking about something. And we all know that, right? We're all totally comfortable, right? If I told you right now I could do a guided meditation on any topic on planet Earth, and you could probably think about it. It wouldn't be very difficult to just follow. You know, we can all decide right now to think about the sleeping habits of the Arctic seal, right? And their dentistry, and we could think about that for 2 minutes if we necessary. You know what I mean? You can think about whatever you want. But what we cannot control is how we feel on the inside. So Tanya told us in an epic construct that what you think about becomes how you feel. But that's in a healthy chain of evolution, right? There are those souls amongst us, and perhaps many of us are from there, who originate in this soul root level of pre-emotion. You know, we have 10 soul attributes, intellectual and emotional. So we're in the image of God. God also presents himself through intellectual and emotional attributes. If we came from the supernal emotional attributes, we would be very emotional, animated people. But if we came from the supernal cerebral attributes, we'd be very cerebral people. Right? More alive, more animated is emotional, more cerebral is more emotional, right? And many of us are a little bit more in the cerebral or the undeveloped emotion categories, and that's why we're not capable of giving birth to a full-blown emotion, right? At least not a guided emotion. So the way he explained it in chapter 16 was that, look, there's something, what he called the tavuna love. It's not a real love, it's a tavuna love, which means it's an attitude of love. It's a tug of love, right? I feel that I should be loving this concept. Like, let's say you meditate on God's greatness. So I, for example, made a meditation yesterday on the golf course. I told people, think about the beautiful landscape around you. Think about it. Everything which is so beautiful is only beautiful because it's alive. Why is it alive? Because it's connected to its source. So I said, when you're on the golf course, I want you to think about the fact that you too can be beautiful when you're connected to your source. Think about that, right? So whether that's going to give birth to a full-blown emotion or not, I don't know. But at least it will give you like, yeah, I guess I should be connected to my source. It's like a tug of love, right? That's the love that can motivate action, right? And that was the long way of the Alter Rebbe. That was the long way. He said, taking that verse from the Torah, for the thing is very near to you in your mouth and in your heart that you may do it. The way he interpreted the verse was, for the thing is very near to you. Self-mastery is very near in your mouth, speech, and in your heart, emotion, that you may do it. Emotion to motivate action. So you can muster an emotion, at least enough emotion to motivate action, to motivate self-mastery through a meditation that gives birth to even a stunted emotion. And that was the long method. By the way, we all are capable of loving God.
Of what?
Of loving God. We are. Think about it. Are there people in your life that you love? Think about it. Of course there's people in my life that I love. Would you call it a stunted emotion? No, it's not a stunted emotion. I love my son, I love my daughter, I love my wife, my husband. This is real love, real full-blown emotion, right? We just have to get comfortable with the fact that even that which I cannot see still exists. That's the part that we have to sort of hitch the train to, you know what I mean? And we can understand, we more than any other generation can relate to the fact that things that we don't see still very much exist. Right? In the olden generations, they might have said, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist. But in our generation, have you ever seen the internet? Have you ever seen electricity? Have you ever seen radio waves? Have you ever seen cell phone waves? We know that our spectrum of vision is like a tiny little sliver of what's out there. Right? From ultraviolet and gamma rays and I don't know what other kinds of many kinds. We have like this little tiny sliver that we can actually see, but there's a lot more out there. So we who live in a very technologically advanced time know that there's much more that exists beyond what meets the eye. So if we're able to meditate upon that idea and come to realize that just like I have a relationship with my son and daughter, my brother and sister, my mother and father, my spouse, I also can and should have a relationship with my God, which is where I come from. Right? And even I can have a relationship with my deceased grandmother also, by the way. I can't see her. Doesn't mean, no, you can't have an emotion that you can't see. She doesn't exist. Of course you can. Of course. Right? So just like you can't see your deceased grandmother-in-law, you can see a picture. That helps. It does help. But with God also, you can see God's picture. You can't see his picture, but you can see his consequences. You can look at the beautiful tree that he created. You can look at his creations. You can look at all the wonderful things that he created. And then you get at least an understanding from what he did, right? And that gives you some sort of a thing to think about. And that, by the way, is the theme of the morning davening. That's exactly what we're doing in the morning davening, in the Psukei de Zimra. We're not just saying mindless, verbal literature, which is not random poetry that we're reading here in the morning. We actually are focused, our guided meditations, to think about the wonders of creation, to be able to grasp and sink our teeth into something that we can relate to that God did, that is wondrous, and say, wow. So that by the time you reach Kaddish, you can say, Yizgadal v'Yizgadal Shemei Rabbah, may God be exalted and glorified. Glorified, yeah. Why glorified? Because, wow, just like when you go to the Grand Canyon and you are in awe. Wow. That's what happens every morning when we daven and we focus on a part of davening. We think about it, we meditate upon it, and we're saying, wow. That's what we're doing. So that prepares us to stand humbly before God in prayer, right? So now, that was the long way. But now the Alter Rebbe says, even that, a lot of people can't do. We've got to find another way for people to reach self-mastery without thinking too hard, without creating any emotion inside of them. Okay? I want to share with you an interesting idea related to this week's parsha. You know, we read the parsha of the week and we come across Yaakov running away from his brother Esav, who was trying to kill him. And he meets this beautiful cousin of his, Rachel. He falls in love with her, love at first sight, gives her a kiss at the well right away, right? And this is his beloved wife, Rachel. But then we know the whole switch. He marries Leah, right? And it's pretty pathetic story when we hear that he hated Leah and he loved Rachel, and we're like all confused about this love triangle that's going on here. You know, it's a complicated marriage story. But I want to share with you the Hasidic interpretation of that story, the way the Alter Rebbe teaches it, not here, but in another place, which I think is very closely connected. The way the Alter Rebbe teaches that story is like this. He says, Rachel represents that which looks beautiful and is obviously beautiful. I think Chana taught this on Shabbos afternoon. She mentioned something about this. Leah, the word Leah, by the way, the word Rachel means a U. E-W-E. Now, I'm not, my animal biology isn't that great. Apparently they're beautiful. They got striking colors or something. It says, and that's what it says in the book. It says it's like bright white or something. I wouldn't recognize a U if I saw one, but it says in the book that they got striking colors. Okay, but apparently it's a beautiful, it's like lovable creature. I don't know.
I don't know how beautiful it is. It's not like,
There's some people
not like
who
a
have
llama,
questions
you know.
about
Llama.
But to a shepherd, it would be.
Hey guys, let's keep focused. Okay. So the Rachel is the you, which is the lovable creature.
Right.
The Leah, the word Leah means elusive. Leah means elusive. It means that which you cannot grasp.
Wow.
That's what Leah means. Nil-eh. The root
What's
is
the word?
the root is nil-eh.
Elusive.
Elusive. That's what it means. Leah means elusive. So what? No, it means elusive. Hang on. Let me build this. So Rachel is that which you see and you can grasp and you can sink your teeth into and you can hug. Leah is that which you can't. We tend to love that which we can
that you can.
grasp. What?
You tend to love that which you can love.
Right? And that which you don't know is kind of mysterious and you don't really have a very strong relationship with it, right? So when it says that Yaakov loved Rachel, he loved, you're going to step out of the love metaphor, or the physical marriage metaphor for a moment and go into our personal microcosm for a little bit. He loved Rachel, but he hated Leah. He hated the intangible parts of himself. And he loved the tangible parts of himself. What are the tangible parts of himself? Speech and action. What is the untangible parts? Thought. So speech and action, we love speeches. You know, we pay money to go listen to a speaker, and we love, hearing this speaker or that speaker, the other speaker, because we can relate to it. They said something, the guy survived on Tebi raid, and he did well, and he spoke about it, and I heard about it, and I feel good about it. That's great, that's Rachel. You spoke, love at first sight. I can connect with this message, right? Action, right? You built something magnificent, Taj Mahal, lovely. We're going to go check it out. It's something I can hold and picture and everything. But imagine thought. How often would you pay money to go and think with a thinker? I can't even relate to that. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing, right? Like you're going to be thinking together. What are we doing now? Thinking is just too intangible, right?
Isn't that what we do here every day?
But you didn't pay any money for it.
Yeah, you wouldn't pay money for it. Meditation is something. Meditation is something that is elusive.
That's like going to an ashram.
It is.
Let me just finish this point. The meditation is something that's elusive. Thinking, it's not easy to think, right? We'd much rather do something than have to think, because it's like elusive, right? Hashem saw that Leah was hated, that human beings have a difficult time thinking, and therefore he wanted to reward the meditation. So he made her fertile. She gave birth to 6 boys, 6 of the 12 tribes of Israel. Why? Meditation will give birth to inner emotion, right? That's like the inner interpretation of that story of the Parsha, right? So meditation will give birth to emotions. But the Alter Rebbe was well aware that we don't like to meditate. It's something, it's much easier to turn on Netflix or, just watch something than it is to think deeply about an idea, right? What does it say? I think it was Hitler who said,
I don't think he'd say that.
I'm pretty sure he said, how fortunate are we that so few men are thinkers. I'm pretty sure that Hitler was the one who said that. Do you hear that?
Yeah. It's not the first time I've heard it. Because obviously, if you want to follow a dictator or follow a leader, particularly doing bad things, you don't want people who think about it.
Yeah, they just do. Follow.
More than that, he had to train the people to think of Jews as being vermin, as being,
I'm just bringing it.
You didn't have to train them?
Yeah.
I'm bringing it.
You didn't have to train the people. They were already taught that for hundreds of years.
Anyways, I can't find that quote right now, but it wasn't Hitler. It was somebody, some other tyrant. I'm pretty sure it was him. Anyways, whatever. Bottom line is, back to Tanya. So I think that...
How about Stalin?
I think that... Doesn't matter. But I think that at the end of the day, we can understand why the Alter Rebbe feels it necessary to spend the next 7 chapters developing this idea for the non-thinkers amongst us. Because it's hard to think. It's very rewarding. I got to tell you, when I think, it is so beautiful. It is such a beautiful experience. It literally, when I take the time to think, I really feel, I can tell when I give a sermon on Shabbos, I feel, I don't know if you notice, I always go into like this rapture. I go into a state of deep thinking just during the Haftarah. And I don't like it if anybody disturbs me at that time. Don't talk to me, don't like whatever. I just need to go into my talis. And I really think, because if I'm going to speak about an idea, I don't want to just think it. I need to feel it. I need to be feeling it.
And we can feel that.
Thank you.
Comes across.
Thank you. Sometimes more than others, because it depends on my focus level. Do you know what I mean? It depends on where I'm at and how prepared I was able to be, and all of many multiple factors that are at play, right? But for me, I feel that I need to feel it. And that meditation puts me in a state where, honestly, I can't relate to the clock at that time. It's very difficult for me to relate to the clock. So I'm not on the watch.
Yeah,
because
I don't like when Mickey goes.
Because when I'm in that state, if I've reached that level, I'm feeling it. I'm in the zone. When I'm in the zone, exactly, I'm in the zone. It's very difficult to, it's even like last night's speaker. If you were there, she was supposed to give a short speech. She really was supposed to give a short speech, and a lot of people were upset that she didn't. She said she wasn't, and she was going to give, and she didn't. But her story was an incredible story. It was an incredible story, and there was no way to stop that. She said she couldn't cut it down, but she was going to try to cut it down, but she couldn't cut it down. She spoke about it. She's in the Navy SEALs, that she lost a few brothers, 2 brothers in the Air Force and in the Navy, and the story. There was an incredible story, an absolutely incredible story that she gave. She was in the zone. There was no way I could see her. She was totally in the zone. There was no way that she could, bring that down. So when you're thinking, it's like the lights come on in your mind. It's a beautiful thing. I want to highly encourage you to think. And meditation is overrated. It's not that you have to go to an expensive hotel or resort or ashram or some foreign country to think. You can just turn your phone off. That's all. Just turn your phone off. You can go somewhere in your car or anywhere else where nobody's going to bother you, and just close your eyes and think. Just think. It's beautiful. What it's going to do to you is like Leah. It's going to give birth to children. You start feeling stuff.
So actually,
I think we don't give ourselves enough credit when it comes to our emotions. What?
Well, the whole thing to me sounds like we do control our emotions. In other words, earlier in the discussion, you said we can control our thoughts but not our emotions. But it seems to me that the thoughts trigger the emotions.
For sure. The question is, can we get to stage 1 is the big question. Can we, what's it going to take to bring us to stage 1, to actually start that thinking process? The quickest way to lose your power, says Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook, the quickest way to lose your power is to believe that you don't have any in the first place.
Sure.
If you don't think that my thoughts will create emotions, you're dead on arrival.
Well, exactly.
And many of us are like that. So if you actually start to think, it is a beautiful experience. I had an experience this week. Somebody sent me a message telling me that they had a baby. And it was from a forbidden union. Without getting into any details, not necessary. I was so conflicted. About how to respond.
Well, what was the question?
The baby was born in a forbidden union.
Yeah. So what was the question?
They wrote to me that they had a baby.
Yeah,
So I was like experiencing this short circuit of emotion because I was very happy for this person, but at the same time I was very deeply pained for this person. And I was like starting to type and I kept on like stopping and starting and stop. I just didn't know. Like, you say Mazel Tov? You say congratulations? Do you say something else? Do you not say something? It took me a while. I really had to stop and I had to meditate on my love for this person. And I had to put myself in this person's shoes, and I reminded myself of the trauma and abuse that this person experienced as a child, which I am deeply aware of. And I had to put aside all of my rabbinic whatever, and I had to just really empathize and validate and feel the pain of this person. And once I did that, I felt that I was able to go ahead. And you know, when you have an argument with your spouse, you might be feeling maybe emotions that are not comfortable. Your child, you might be feeling emotions that are negative and toxic. You have to stop. You have to stop, take a deep breath, and you have to remind yourself why you fell in love with this person. With a child, it's a little bit easier than a spouse because a child is his natural love, right? But a spouse is a created love, right? So it's a little different energy. But you have to do that. And you just have to stop and think about everything you love about that person and focus your emotion. Focus it. You can guide your emotion, right? So if you want, you can focus on exactly what my eye sees right now, which is a problem, which is an argument, a disagreement, a fight, whatever, right? And then you're going to be giving birth to negative emotions. Or you can stop that, put a barrier, build a wall, and you can say, I'm focusing on my core values, on what I love about him or her. And you meditate about that. This is not talking about a 4-hour meditation here. We're talking about 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, however long, or less, right? Just think about it. And what you're going to do is you're going to give birth to an emotion for that person, and you'll be able to speak differently to that person. And in most cases, you'll be able to stop the fight before it gets much worse. It's really important to do this. You know, when you bless your kids on a Friday, I always tell people to bless kids on a Friday night, on a Friday night. It's my family custom. And when you bless your kids, let's say you had a rough encounter with your kids this week, and little kids you bless and big kids you bless. You should call them up on the phone and give them a blessing. But maybe you're not in a good, you're going through a little rut with the kid, right? So what you have to do is you have to bless them out of love. You have to stop and think about all the things you love about them, project that love, and then you can bless, okay? So that's where chapter 18 starts.
I like the way you said the first thing, even before you start thinking, is don't say anything. Be quiet, because my reaction, just to talk myself, I tend to react quickly to say something. Stop, don't say it, because the minute something leaves your mouth.
It's a learned thing.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean,
It's a burn thing.
no, but it is a learned thing because I know, having been married twice, 25 years each. So
Wow.
yeah, I just had my 25th anniversary a week ago with Judy.
No, that's okay.
Time for the
Wonderful,
third.
but I'm so aware, even when I have a disagreement, I don't fight. It's very different. I really am.
You know, they were right when they said,
I'm mindful of how
they
blessed
were
am.
right when they said marriage is a bed of roses. And roses come with thorns.
Absolutely.
You got to be realistic. There are thorns in that journey, and you got to be smart about them. Right? So Tanya gives us tools. Tanya says, look, you do not have to be a reactive being. As a human being, you are the select of creation. You are the fulcrum of the universe. You do not have to react to the weather, the political news, or to react to the stock market, or react to the vicissitudes of the moods of the people that are nearest to you. You can be the rock. And the way to do that is starting right here, because we are always in control of what we choose to think about. Nobody can take that away from us. Right. And we are also in control of the emotions that we can muster. But those emotions we have to believe in ourselves to be able to make those emotions, to believe in our power, to get to that power. Right? So the Alter Rebbe recognizes that many people are not going to get there. They either lack the the intellectual predisposition towards thinking in general, because maybe they're just very shallow people, or like us, they're just very distracted people, which is such a shame, right? It's such a shame that our most precious asset, our consciousness, is constantly cut up like a pizza pie in so many more directions. How many people did we have to talk to 100 years ago in a day? In one day, how many people did you talk to?
Family.
Think about it. Today, if you spoke to less than
You don't remember?
88
I don't
people,
remember either. Let me check.
if you spoke to less than 88
Calendar.
people, they're starting to get mad with you. You know, it used to be, someone writes you a letter. Write them back a letter.
Right.
Oh, those
Takes
are
them a
good.
week to get to you.
Yeah.
Takes them a week to get back.
It was so
No
good.
problem.
I love that.
No problem. Then we had the emails.
And emails.
Then we had the emails. Emails was
Makes
like,
fun of us.
emails are like you respond the same day. You have to respond the same day. If you don't respond the same day, then I'm mad. Okay. He's ignoring me.
Yes.
Then we got text messages. Text messages is like, no, not all day. I'm giving you an hour.
No,
An hour, not anymore.
Hold on. In a text message, give a guy an hour. After an hour, you start to worry. Then came the Apple iMessage. The Apple iMessage.
Well,
You can
yeah.
see the guy typing
Right.
before the message
right.
even arrived. You better be on alert. Because
Yes,
do you see the guy
dot,
typing?
And then
You
when
see
it
the
doesn't
dot.
go through and they don't really write.
They change
I'm
their
like,
mind.
what happened? Wait a minute. I have something answered.
And you
Oh,
guys
that's
remember
so,
the Blackberries?
Yeah.
Remember what was it like to hold a Blackberry in your hand that had a red light that went
Sure.
blink, 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 blink?
What did that mean?
It means you have a message.
Oh, okay.
So something new that came, the Blackberry went black.
And our
You didn't
dopamine
see
is
it.
going through the roof. We're all excited, right? Okay, fine. Back to
You had
Tanya,
to
guys.
touch it. You had
Guys,
to
back to
touch
Tanya.
it.
So we live in a very distracted generation. I think the next few chapters are very appropriate for us. So chapter 18 through 25 introduces us to the shortcut method to self-mastery. You know what? Says the Alter Rebbe, maybe you can't build up an emotion, a new emotion of love to God like you have for your wife or your children or your husband. But you know what? You already have a very powerful love inside of you. Hang on. It's a very, very general term to say neshama. You already have, no, it's not that. You already have a very, very powerful love to God, a devotion to God inside of you. And it's flaming fire. It's very, very powerful. The problem is you're not aware of it. It's called a hidden love. It's a natural love. It's already there. And it's hidden. Now let's talk about that. Why is it a natural love? So we spoke about this last week. I'm just going to refresh your memory. The reason why it's a natural love is because this love comes to us from our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. By virtue of being born a Jew, you have this love inside of you, right? We're all gifted a soul. In other words, what Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were able to do, they themselves, the Tanya says, were chariots to God. What is a chariot? What is a chariot to the rider? The chariot is totally humbled, nullified to the rider. Now, the rider never has to negotiate with the chariot. Okay, can we make a right turn now? Too many right turns. I'm sorry, just one more right turn. You don't have to do that. The chariot does exactly what the rider wants to do. It's a nice metaphor to complete surrender, complete devotion, complete love and trust. Imagine you had a relationship like that with your spouse. Right? Imagine, can you reach such a level with your spouse that the love is so intense, the devotion is so impenetrable that anything she asks for is going to happen. It's interesting, right? It's almost like we can just like think about it, but like I don't know do you know anybody on that level?
You gotta trust her 110%.
Yeah.
That what
Can
she
you know
wants.
anybody who's on that level?
Yes, I do.
You do?
We just said it, husband and wife.
What's that?
That's a one-way relationship. The master to the chariot. Husband and wife is a two-way relationship.
That's right.
Well, how about if he loves her like a chariot and she loves him like a chariot?
That's not really what you're saying.
Love is not a 50-50. Love is a give.
But the chariot, right, a master is a one-way.
Okay, look, there's what to talk about this. There's what to talk about. But the thing is that you can see how admirable it is that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were extraordinary individuals, that they were able to be on that level of trust. Right? I wonder if there's any part of our lives that have that degree of trust in anything. I mean, I think, the one place that I have that trust, me personally, where I am a chariot to something, is to my Waze. You know what Waze is?
Oh, that app?
The navigation app.
Tells
The
navigation.
navigation.
I am a chariot to that Waze.
Navigation.
I don't care if Waze is going to take me in the opposite direction.
Following it?
I trust in Waze. I do. I really trust in Waze. And I know if it says I'm going to get there at 6:53, I know I've got maybe a 3-minute error margin. It's not going to be 6:23. It's not going to be 6:33. It's going to be 6:53, give or take 2 minutes, right? So for me, and my driver, I always try to tell him, I say to him, look,
I remember this last week.
please use the Waze app.
What driver?
You'll get there quicker for the kids.
drive the kids.
You'll get there quicker. He's like, but I know the way. I said, you don't need the app for the way. I know you know the way, but you know the traffic. Oh, I know the traffic. No, you don't know the traffic. No, I know. You don't know the traffic. So for me, I think I'm a chariot when it comes to Waze. I will blindly follow it. I don't care if it says I have to go north and it tells me to go south. I will go south because I know it's going to take me there. Imagine having that relationship with God.
Yeah, what if it lets you down one day? Then everything's going to
It doesn't. They can't let me down.
It can't.
Can't let you down.
So now the algorithm never fails, right? So point is, obviously, that's a joke, obviously, but the thing is, I think I do have that relationship with Waze. I don't care. I drive blind, like a fighter pilot, a F-16 fighter pilot. They're flying in the dark. How do they know where to fly? How do they know? They can't see anything, right?
I always wondered.
Because they got their radar and they got their whatever. I was doing this on a ship, actually. A guy made me drive his ship. Don't ask me why, but he made me drive his yacht or whatever it was. And
Put
there's
your Waze on.
no, there's like this sonar or something. There's a sonar underneath the boat. How do you know you're not going to hit? You're not going to crash? Because it tells you the depth of the water underneath.
It shows you the
And it said, okay, you better turn right, otherwise this 2 million yacht is going down, man. So I'm like, you trust me with this? Okay, fine. So you take a right turn. He trusted in me apparently, but that was the relationship that our forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had with God. So what did they do? What did they merit for that? For that, they merited to give each of their physical descendants, the Jewish people. And now you notice in the Torah portions this week, past few weeks, to Abraham it says, to you I will give the blessing, this land, and your children will be like the sands of the earth and the stars of the sky. And we spoke a few weeks ago about the meaning of the stars of the sky. It's not a quantity thing, it's a quality thing. Right? All these extraordinary blessings, they'll go to Avram. And from Avram, he says, from his 2 sons, he passed that blessing on to Yitzchak. And from Yitzchak's 2 sons, Esav and Yaakov, he gives the blessing on to Yaakov. And Yaakov gives it on to all of his 12 sons, right? Which becomes a Jewish nation. So you see the line of descent going down to the Jewish nation, ultimately going into Sinai, right? So what happens now is that the merit, the blessing that we've been given, the pass it forward that's been passed down to the next subsequent generations is a soul that comes from Abiyah. We each have a soul that comes from Abiyah, which really is what Corey actually was saying, but it's going to be more focused than what you said. You said a godly soul, right? Okay, and for the early part of the discussion, that's correct. Abiyah is the 4 worlds of godly descent. When you travel from, let's say, what I'm thinking to what I'm talking to you, you do understand that there's a chain of evolution of what I'm thinking and feeling to what I choose to express. When I speak, am I being more revealing or more concealing?
Revealing.
Obviously, I'm revealing because if I'm not speaking, I'm concealing. And if I'm saying, if you when you meet someone and they don't talk, they drive you crazy. They're like, what does the guy think? Does he like me? Does he hate me? Does he think I'm stupid? Right? You know what's going on, right? And then they say, Charlie Brown likes carrots, and you're like, oh, that guy's crazy, right? So in other words, so you see that the words that come out tell you about what that person's thinking, right? So as I'm speaking to you now, I'm teaching Tanya. I'm actually, though I'm revealing, I'm really contracting. Because there's a whole lot more in here. And I've got to be very careful to choose which words and which ideas. And as I'm speaking, I'm typing, and I'm like, because there's ideas that are gushing at me. The Mittel Rebbe, who was released from prison 2 days ago, the second Chabad Rebbe, his anniversary of his redemption was 2 days ago, and his yahrzeit and his birthday was 3 days ago on Shabbos. He would often, while he was speaking Chassidus, he would go, Shah, Shah, Shah. The room was quiet. Who is he talking to?
His inner voices.
He's talking to himself. He was calming the gushing wellspring inside of himself. It was like drinking out of a fire hydrant. It was too much. So he needed to sort of, like quell. Is that the right word? Quell the gush. So when I'm speaking to you right now, I have to go through a process of evolution. There's the idea, the way it's illuminated within my mind, and I've got to contract it more and more and more to the point that I can put it into words, empty words, that are hopefully going to be able to convey an idea to you. Right? Same thing with God. When God reveals himself to this world, when God creates this world, he's got to contract his infinite light down to a state of finiteness, state of finity. Right? Now, generally, very, very generally speaking, there's 4 worlds in that process. So there's the world of Atzilus, which is God's emanation. It's the world of emanation. In that world, the world of Atzilus, that is still within the Godhead. There's no external, there's no other at that level. It's like God getting ready to address another. That's where he forms the 10 attributes that we speak about. Why does God have 10 attributes? Because he chose to express himself in 10 attributes. He could have chosen to express himself in 14 or 14,000 attributes. He just chose 10 attributes. He's like getting ready to port, getting ready to export. He's still within himself, but he's getting ready to nurse to the outside, right? Now, that's why he has 10 attributes, the 3 intellectual and the 7 emotional. You have to understand that when we're looking up at God, we say, oh, God has 10 attributes. You're talking about the most external component of God, right? You got that, right? So that's the world of emanation. Then you will go into the world of Bria, creation, and the world of formation. The world of Bria generally is the world of angels. The third world, Yetzira, formation, is the world of Gan Eden. That's where the world of souls. And then there's Asiya, the fourth and final world, which is the world of action. We here are apparently on the very lowest level, the very lowest rung of the world of Asiya, the world of action. Right?
But you said Abiyah.
Abiyah is an acronym. Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. Abiyah is those 4 worlds, right? So each of those worlds have the 10 attributes. So you have the 10 attributes, the 10 sfirot of Atzilus, the 10 sfirot of Bria, the 10 sfirot of Yetzira, and the 10 sfirot of Asiya. So where does your soul come from? Where does your soul come from? Well, your soul might be a new soul, by the way. If you're a new soul, that's like a new light. It's a new light that the world has never seen before. That's extremely rare.
I'm an old soul.
Before the old soul, okay, fine. So a new soul means, a new soul is a tremendous light. Extraordinary. It's like one in a generation. Old souls, it's like recycled souls, or guys that are back here to do unfinished business. It's like all the rest of us. We're doing unfinished business from a previous lifetime, right? But even then, where does my soul come from? Do I come from, remember how we spoke earlier, we said does your soul come from cerebral aspects or from emotional aspects? Right. That's going to make a difference to what kind of person you express yourself as. But then there's, we said there was the emotion, the way they were contained still within the cerebral components. Those are those of us that might have a hard time expressing ourselves emotionally. We know people that just don't know how to express themselves emotionally. They get kind of weird when they get into the emotional. Other people are very comfortable being emotional, right? Like the Italians and the Jews. We like talk a lot, we move our hands. And then you have these other guys that, like the Russians. I don't know how to do their accent, but they're
Germans.
the Germans. There you go. Right. Right. They're very methodical, very cerebral. There are souls that are higher, and there are souls that are lower. Some of us come from the world of Asiya, and some of us come from the souls that are in Atzilus, or Beria, or Yetzira. Higher souls, lower souls, more holier, more mundane, right? We actually spoke about this in Tanya chapter 2, how all souls, they come from various aspects. Right? We spoke about that. But now, the gift that our patriarchs, and why are they called our patriarchs? Why these 3? Why Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are called our patriarchs? Why is Reuven, Shemi, why the 12 tribes not called our patriarchs? Why? Because we didn't inherit anything from them. Patriarchs are those whom you inherit from. Moses, we didn't inherit anything from him. He's called Moshe Rabbeinu. Moses, our teacher. David is called David HaMelech, not David Avinu. David, our father. He's called David, our king, because he was our king, and Moses was our Rebbe. But Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're our fathers. Why? Because we inherited from them, like Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah are our mothers, because we inherited from them too. Now, I believe that this is talking about both the mothers and the fathers. That both the mothers and the fathers were the patriarchs and matriarchs that bequeathed to us the gift of, the birthright of a soul which is sourced in Abiyah. in one of the four worlds of Atzilus, Beriya, Yetzirah, and Asiya, a godly soul, which comes from one of those four worlds. As opposed to a non-Jew, who doesn't have a soul coming from one of those four worlds.
What happens if you have someone who, like Ruth,
Converts.
who converted?
Then they get a Jewish soul.
converted.
Then they get a Jewish soul.
Where do they get it? All of a sudden,
Where do they get it?
Upon
all of a
conversion.
sudden comes out.
What do you mean, where do they get it? Okay.
come on.
So
It's
fine. So I can answer you like this. I could
Alright.
say the way that the Chassidus explains a convert is that the Talmud doesn't speak of the non-Jew who converted, the goy shenizgayer.
Right.
It speaks of a convert who converted. You see the difference? A ger shenizgayer, not a non-Jew converted, a Gentile converted. It says a convert who converted. Which implies they were already a convert before. The reason that anybody in their right mind, the reason why anyone in their right mind would ever want to join the most oppressed, persecuted, and hated people of all time, the only reason anybody would want to become a Jew is only because their soul is actually rooted as a Jewish soul, and got lost for whatever reason and needs to come back home. That's it. Okay, so that hopefully should answer your question.
I love
It
that.
took a detour.
Right. So now we can understand that.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
We're also not saying about the patriarchs who viewed themselves as chariots for God, that they were like that all the time, right? We're saying that they grew into that eventually, because we know that Abraham and
Yes, of
Yaakov
course.
all argued with God at different points. But when you're saying that they got themselves to a point where they were like chariots, that was later. That was not.
Of course, they weren't born as robots, that they were like, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir.
Well,
Of course.
it's an important point.
They're human
because
beings, yeah.
If you remember, I was telling you that a lot of Jews, rabbis included, have a hard time with the 10th trial of Abraham, saying he argued about Sodom and he couldn't argue about killing his son.
He had evolved by that time.
Yeah.
And that's why he passed that test, because when God told him to bind his son upon the altar, he didn't just do it, he did it quickly, he did it with alacrity. Vayashkem Avraham baboker. He woke up early in the morning. So yeah, at that point, he was at a point that he wasn't arguing with God anymore. In other words, he had reached the point of surrender. Just like in a marriage, it's a beautiful place to be. It's a beautiful place to be.
Not to argue.
I met
You're
someone.
always wrong.
I met someone the other day, whose wife told me his wife didn't recognize him anymore.
His wife did.
Told me his wife didn't recognize him anymore.
Changes behaviors.
No. She's dementia.
Oh,
And for the first time, he went to visit her,
Interesting. Oh,
and she didn't recognize him at all.
that's horrible.
My heart broke for this guy.
Oh, it's horrible.
So I said to him the story of an old elderly man who was having his blood drawn, and he asked the young nurse, to please hurry, because he has an appointment. So she asked, at your age, what kind of appointment are you running to? She says, I'm having breakfast with my wife. I have breakfast with her every day. So he says, oh, wow. She says, oh, that's great. That's terrific. Oh, sure, hurry. Where are you meeting? She says, at the Alzheimer's Institute down the road. So she thinks about it, and she says,
Is he gonna know? Yeah,
she says, let me ask you, if you don't mind, the personal question. She says, she wouldn't even know the difference if you came late or you didn't even show up. Does she know who you are? She probably doesn't even know who you are. So this older man, he takes his nurse by the hand and he pats her like a maidele,
Yeah.
and he smiles and he says, she doesn't know who I am, but I know who she is. Right? And I felt that was, I said the story of the guy, he broke down, but that's devotion, which maybe wasn't always there. It took a lot of time to build that degree of devotion. And in our personal relationships with Hashem, it's the same way. We go through this love-hate relationship with God. Why this to me, why that to me, and all the struggles. And maybe we are able to reach a point eventually. We say, Hashem, whatever you send my way, I'm yours. I'm yours. That's part of the prayers that we say. We try to reach this level. We say, Hashem, whatever you send me, I'm yours, because I know I love you, and you love me more than I love myself, and you know me more than I know myself, and you love me more than my wife loves me, and like you learned in the JLI this past week, that God loves us. I love you, says Hashem. Ahavti eschem amar Hashem. I love you, says God. How much does He love us? He loves us more than a parent loves their only child. More. So when I can reach that level, knowing that God loves me more than I love my kids, And I would never do anything to hurt my kids, so Hashem would never do anything to hurt me. I'm like, God, give me a best shot, I don't care. Whatever you send my way. That was Reb Zusha that we learned about on Wednesday night. When Reb Zusha said, if you missed the class, I'm just going to mention it quickly. He said, I don't know why the Rebbe sent you to me to learn about how to deal with problems. I don't even know why he sent you to me. I don't have problems. Because as far as he was concerned, there was no bad that was going on in his life. Whatever Hashem sent him was good. But let me just finish this construct.
Very helpful.
I'm just coming back here. Coming back to the construct, okay? So the gift that we got from our patriarchs is that each of us gets a soul, which is rooted in Abiyah. Even if it's in the lowest level of Abiyah, we all get a godly soul rooted in the divine circuit, right? By the way, somebody who doesn't have a soul rooted in the divine circuit, who doesn't have a godly soul, has a natural soul. And a natural soul is like a battery. When it's over, it's over. Right? So just like, people say, do dogs have an afterlife? The answer is no, they don't. Because they have a natural soul, and that natural soul, like the body, expires. Right? The only thing that is immortal in this world is God. That's the only thing. There's nothing else that's immortal. So if you happen to have a soul which comes from God, that's awesome. And you're immortal too. But if you don't have a soul that comes from God, then not. If you just have like a little natural soul, that's it. Right? So that's where the origin of the afterlife is. Now, this is the beautiful part here. This godly soul that we have, which is rooted in the divine circuit, in one of these four worlds, even if you're on the highest or if you're on the lowest level. And there's big differences between those soul levels. When it comes to holiness, everything is interconnected. Everything. Holiness, the signature, the hallmark of holiness is humility and hence coexistence. The signature of unholiness is ego and hence selfishness, inability to coexist. The signature of unholiness is ego and inability to work together. The signature of holiness is humility and therefore an ability to work together. You may remember that analogy I told you last week about the no elbows, heaven and hell. Do you remember that analogy? That they were in heaven, they're helping each other, and hell, everyone's hungry because they don't want to feed each other. So what happens now is, since our souls are sourced in the divine worlds of Abiyah, and each one of those worlds of the 10 attributes of each of those four worlds, the 40 attributes really, are interconnected one with the other. Therefore, even the lowest level of the lowest world has within it a degree of Chachma, the highest level of the highest world. Because it's all interconnected. And every one of us, even the lowest of the lowest level of souls, of godly souls, has within it a spark of Chachma of the highest world, Chachma of Atzilus. And that is profound, because Chachma of Atzilus, the highest level of the highest world, is the only soul attribute, divine attribute, that captures within it infinity. Why does it, in the words of Tanya, the Or Ein Sof, the light without end? Why is the light without end able to reside in Chachma? Now remember what Chachma is? Do you remember what Chachma is?
Idea.
Chachma is the idea. It's a spark of inspiration, which is followed by Bina comprehension, which is followed through meditation by realization and feeling, not just understanding the wisdom, feeling the wisdom. That's das, realization, right? But Chachma is that initial spark that bursts the flash of inspiration. Remember that flash of inspiration, what does it feel like when you have that flash of inspiration? How comfortable are you when you have Bina, when you have comprehension? Are you comfortable when you have comprehension?
Yeah.
Feel great.
Yeah.
How about when you have das, when you feel the wisdom? Not just know the wisdom, when you feel the wisdom. How does that feel?
Great.
You feel in control?
I would know.
You do know.
I don't know.
Of course you know. When you reach a state of das, you feel great, you feel in control. But you know what happens when you're in a state of chachma? The moment you have a flash of inspiration, the flash of your idea, the solution, what do you do right away?
Doubt yourself.
What do you do?
Write it down.
You write it down. What happens if you don't write it down?
I forget.
You got about 7 seconds. What happens if you get a phone call in the middle?
I usually don't answer.
What?
I don't know.
But what happens if you answer the phone?
It's gone.
You'll forget it. Because when it comes to Chachma, you are not in control. Chachma is way too powerful for us to handle. The light is overwhelming. When I get an idea, Like you'll notice before, I think something was going on here before. Somebody was asking me about the raffle winner or something, and I was like, I ignored the person. I couldn't, because I was zoned into my chachma moment. I was doing something, I was having a chachma moment. I couldn't even I'm sorry if I was rude to whoever was talking to me, I do apologize, somewhere from that direction. But but I do apologize. I just want you to know, I was having a chachma moment and I zone out. I totally zone out. So I'm saying,
Probably one of the women. I'm sure, blame us.
don't take it personally.
I'm just
So, chachma is an overwhelming energy. The reason why chachma is an overwhelming light, what we try to do, it's like a lightning strike. It's a lightning strike, which is kind of dangerous. But if you can take a little bit of that lightning, you can power the electricity of your house for the next hour. That's what chachma is. You take that light, and you got a little conversion thing over there on your roof, right? And it turns it into lightning electric. Wouldn't that be nice to have lightning electric? And then you can power your house in a tangible, meaningful, relevant way, right? Lights in the kitchen, lights in the bathroom, this oven, whatever. Everything working in a way that I can relate to. That's already going to be Bina and Das. But the flash of initial inspiration, the surge, the power surge, that's Chachma. What's the energy in Chachma? It's the Or Ein Sof. It's the light without end. Which means, by the way, that every one of our souls, by virtue of being a son or daughter of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, our patriarchs and matriarchs, every one of us has a soul which has within it a vestige of Chachma of Atzilus, the highest level of the highest world, which has within it the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. Every one of us has Or Ein Sof. You know, there's a beautiful Israeli singer. I love listening to this guy. His name is Hanan Ben Ari. Hanan Ben Ari. He's like an Israeli settler kind of guy. Very cool. He sings a song called Wikipedia. Wikipedia, yeah. And the song is called Wikipedia. He sings, Al Tesimuni Beshum Kluv. Don't place me in any cage. Don't define me. Don't Wikipedia me. Oh, that guy's got a beard. Oh, he's got this kind of yarmulke. Okay, let me tell you. He believes this. He's against that. He likes cherries and he doesn't like chocolates with... That's what the whole song is about. He's like, don't put me in a cage, right? And he says, all the blacks do this and all the Sephardim do that. He kind of jokes, very funny kind of singers. He says, there's another singer which is his competitor in Israel. I forget his name. Reichel, I think. Idan Reichel is his competitor. So he says, all the Ethiopians, they listen to Reichel. He says, he says, funny. All the religious Jews don't serve in the army. All the Arabs are terrorists. All the non-observant Jews are evil, corrupt, or something, that's his whole thing. That's in the song. He says, Or Ein Sof Melubash Beguf. He's obviously learning Chassidus Tanya. He says, Or Ein Sof Melubash Beguf. You want to know what I am? I'm infinite light manifested in a human body. Wow, that's what I am. Wow. And I find it's so moving to hear that. In contemporary...
It's your language.
Yeah. That's what I am. You look at a fellow Jew who's politically, ideologically opposed to you. What do you see? Right. Do you see a Democrat? Do you see a Republican? Do you see a lot of money? Do you see a Bentley? Do you see a Toyota? What do you see? Oh, what? Oh, Ein Sof. Infinite light.
That assumes you can look at a person inside, but he can feel it.
That's what Tanya is doing. You're never going to be the same person again after this class. And you're never going to be able to look. Tanya is life-changing. There's a friend of mine who studied Tanya with another guy. He would study Tanya. And for whatever reason, the other guy went off the tracks. He went off the derech, as we say. Became irreligious. Years later, they met up. And his friend, the guy that became irreligious, looked at him. And they started talking. He said to him, I'll never forgive you. The irreligious guy said to the religious guy, I'll never forgive you. Why? So he says, because of you, I can't properly enjoy life. Because we learn Tanya, I always know the truth.
Yes.
I know that all this is fake. In other words, now you can understand why the Alter Rebbe was thrown into jail. For 53 days, corresponding to 53 chapters of Tanya. You can understand why it's such a yontif that the Mittel Rebbe, his son, who was only Rebbe for 15 years, by the way, was such a yontif that he was let out of jail 2 days ago. Who cares? So what? Many people come out of jail. The reason they were in jail is because from heaven they were putting a stop order on the release of this wisdom to humankind. This is too intense. It's going to take away people's freedom of choice. It's too much power to the people. We want them to be in a little bit more darkness. And the fight that the Rebbes fought for us is that they rammed this through. They said, Tanya, we're publishing. Can you imagine the courage that it took? They literally stood up to heaven, right? Saying, we're sharing this with your kids, right? I just want you to know, when you learn Tanya, you're a changed person. It's there was that guy I mentioned in a sermon a few months ago, a guy who left his house. Remember that it says, Rabbi Yehuda Chassid says, it's a Middle Ages Kabbalist. He says, when you leave your house, you shouldn't go back on a journey, right?
Yeah.
If you're not, because the angels leave with you, you shouldn't come back to pick up something. Right. So this guy, the chassid from Crown Heights, he left to the airport and he realized he left his passport behind. See, and there was nobody home to get it from him. He had to go back in the house and pick it up. He called the Rebbe's secretary. He says, what do I do? Do I go back in the house? Because then I'm violating, the order, the Kabbalistic order of Rabbi Yehuda, the chassid, who said you should go back to your house, right? And the directive came from the Rebbe, study a chapter of Tanya.
That's right.
And then go back in the house. Go back in the house, then study a chapter of Tanya. It will make you into a new person, and then you can go out.
We'll have to get a pocket version. Yes.
Right? So basically, let me wrap up over here and say, yeah, you should, by the way. Seriously. Yesterday on the golf course, I was studying this. So I want to say this. Or Ein Sof Melubash Beguf is the gift of our patriarchs and matriarchs. When we learn Genesis in the next few weeks, you look at these guys. This isn't just a story of some random guy at the well meeting his wife, and we have to do it again and again and again. I know the story 47 times already. It's not what it's about. This is our spiritual heritage. If a lawyer calls you up and he says, you just inherited $10 million, how crazy would it be if you're not to cash the check? That's what we're doing here. We're saying, folks, this is your heritage, $10 million over here in spiritual benefit. Cash the check. You don't even know that it's there. We don't even know that it's there. That's why we have to read Genesis again, to understand where we're coming from, to understand where we're going, to understand what we have, to understand what makes us so special and unique and what our purpose in this world is. Or in Sof Melubash Beguf, an infinite light that's enclosed in a physical, fleshly human being, which that itself, by the way, is a Hanukkah miracle. How can you take an infinite light and put it in a body? Right? It's literally like the oil, if you remember for the guys over here last year, the oil that burned on the 8th day, the oil was burning, but it wasn't going down, right? It's like literally, it's what's called a paradox of opposites. It was a natural fire, and it was an unnatural fire at the same time, right? Also the space in the Holy Ark, in the temple. It says, you measured wall to wall in the Ark, it was like 20 feet, wall to wall. But if you measured, there was an ark in the middle, right? If you measure wall to ark 10 feet, wall to ark 10 feet. Right? So, and the ark itself was like 5 feet. So, the ark wasn't taking up space. It was measurable and immeasurable at the same time. It was a paradox of opposites. It was a harmony of opposites, right? So, that's what's happening here. When God managed to come up with this brilliant idea of taking infinity and putting it into a human body, that is a human being. That is a Jew, that is a Jew. And I want to just say one more thing. Why Chachma? Why the attribute of Chachma? So, we can relate to the fact that when we experience that surge of inspiration, that idea, we can relate to feeling overwhelmed. Right? Wanda said it straight up. She has to write it down. What happens when you write it down? You're capturing it. You have now owned it because you wrote it down. And not even all of it, by the way.
You can meditate.
When you write it down, you wrote 2-3 key words. But there's still more light there, and you want to capture as much light as you can, but it's almost already gone by then, right? So it's tricky, right? So that Chachma, we can relate to the fact that it's a surge of lightning, a lightning surge. But why, says chapter 18, why Chachma? Because Chachma is the letters Koach Ma. Remember in Hebrew you can flip around the letters, right? Every word is actually a mathematical value. Every word is a mathematical value, and you can flip around the letters. Koach Ma means the power of what? The power of nothing. Whereas Bina, a Bina Jew, is the comprehender Jew. This is the very educated, it's the knowledgeable Jew. He's full of himself, with all due respect. The Das Jew is the very emotional Jew, also very proud of himself. Right? And not necessarily is it a bad thing, but he's full of himself. The Chachma Jew, the idea Jew, is the one that is overwhelmed by the light. His presence is null. Right? Just like your presence is null when you have that idea. When you're at that state of chachma, you're humble. Humility is the lightning rod to attract the infinite light. Ego is the repellent to push it away. Right? The Talmud states explicitly about only the arrogant one, only about ego does the Talmud say, Ein ani v'hu yecholin nadar, he and I cannot coexist. Only about ego. So where is the lightning rod for God? Only in humility. And that's why it says in the Siddur, we say in the Siddur, in the very last paragraph of the Shemona Esrei, we say some very, you'll notice this is a recurring theme that comes up all the time in our prayers. It says, here, my God, last paragraph of the Amidah. Guard my tongue from evil and my lips from speaking deceitfully. Let my soul be silent to those who curse me. Let my soul be as dust to all. Open my heart to your Torah. When can I capture you? When my heart is as dust to all. When I experience humility. And you'll notice this is a recurring theme throughout the entire Torah. King David struggled with this all the time in Tehillim and Psalms. He's like, Lord, you have made me small. And I even spoke about it on Shabbos. I said it was Tehillim on Shabbos. I mentioned chapter 13. That God, how long will you hide from me?
Yes.
As long as I have a plan. Right? As long as I have a plan, that's how long you're going to hide from me. Chapter 13, right? Which means, as long as...
13 of what?
Of Tehillim.
Of Tehillim.
Of Psalms. As long as I feel that I've got a plan, that's when you're hiding from me. But the moment I give up, the moment I say, God, I can't do this without you, that's when God reveals himself to me. And the same thing with Jacob in chapter 121 of Psalms. He said, Shur Malot, a song of ascents, I turn my eyes to my parents, right? That was what I said in Shabbos. I turn my eyes to my parents. Where are you, parents? They were gone, right? Where's my Eliezer? Where's my 10 camels? Where's my wealth? That was also stolen from me. Now I can see that my help is from God. Behold, the garden of Israel, neither slumbers nor sleeps. When do you find God? At rock bottom, right? That's what I spoke about in Shabbos.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Okay, when someone is deceased, a Jewish soul is deceased, when the Jewish person is deceased, they still have the Or Ein Sof, right?
Okay. Yeah.
That's still
Sure,
continues.
of course.
Okay.
So the Chachma is the only resting place for infinity. Why? Because it has no ego of its own. Its very nature is koach ma, the power of nothing. Because the nature of Chachma is an empty vessel. It's all about the light. It's nothing to do with the vessel. It's not like, oh, I'm a Maserati. Oh, I'm a Alfa Romeo. No, it's not. It's nothing about the vessel. It's all about the light. Right? The lightning surge. And that's why it's a perfect resting place for infinity. And this is what it means. Let's just do this inside for just a few more minutes. We'll just do this in the text, okay? Here, we're at page 212. So last week we read the first third of the chapter. Today we're just going to do the second third. Okay? Okay, so let's look at this. You ready? Page 212, okay? Bottom of the page. I'm only going to be doing the bold, okay? And the answer to where this inherited love comes from, the Medrash teaches that the patriarchs were genuinely a chariot to God, 213. As a result, they merited that their future descendants would forever be endowed with soul powers of Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama from one of the 10 holy Sephiros. Bottom of the page, in the bold, however, this does not mean that all the souls of Israel are equal, since each soul might be associated with any of the 10 holy spheres as they are found in any of the 4 spiritual worlds. Atzilus, emanation, Bria, creation, Yetzirah, formation, and Asiya, action. So we come from one of those 4 worlds. Over the page, 214. Each individual begins life according to his soul's initial level in the Sephiros within the 4 worlds. And then his soul can ascend the Sephiros and the worlds during his life, following his good behavior. middle of the page, and while we may not all have lofty souls, they are all at least from one of the 10 holy spheres without exception, so that even the most irreverent and sinful Jews will cause a holy soul to be endowed to their children through their act of conception, at the very least from the lowest soul level, nefesh of nefesh, from the lowest of the 10 holy spheres, malchus, from the lowest of the 4 worlds, asiyah. This nefesh of malchus being the lowest rung in the sacred world of asiyah. So even though we might be getting a soul from the very lowest level, over the page 215, even if a person has a soul from the lowest of the sephiros and from the lowest of the worlds, nevertheless, since it is ultimately rooted in one of the 10 holy sephiros, it contains an element of all the other spheres inside of it. Due to this fundamental interconnectedness, even the lowest sephira of the lowest world, Malchus of Asiyah, contains within it the highest sephira of that world, the Chachma of Asiyah. So the lowest level of the lowest world has within it the highest level of the lowest world. And within the highest sephira, I'm just going to skip over this part a little bit. No, let's keep on going. And within the highest sphere of the lowest world, Chachma of Asiyah, we find the veiled presence of the highest world. Okay, so don't worry about the technical part of here. It's all about interconnectedness. First through Chachma within Atzilos, right? In which it is found Chachma of Atzilos, the bottom of the page. And in the highest sphere, Chachma of the highest world, the blessed infinite light shines literally. The Or Ein Sof shines literally. As the verse states, God founded the earth with Chachma, right? God founded the earth with Chachma, which means creation, which is God's infinite power. Creation, earth, came through Chachma. And you have made them all with Chachma. The verses imply that God's direct connection with the universe is through the vehicle of Chachma. Once God's light floods Chachma, it then spreads to all the other spheres and to the rest of the universe. Keep on going. So it turns out, middle of the page, that regardless of what kind of Jew you may be, the infinite light of God is present in the Chachma component of your soul. And that component of Chachma, together with the blessed infinite light present in it, then dissipates throughout your entire soul to every component within it, energizing your soul at all levels from head to foot. As the verse states by Solomon, Chachma gives light to those who possess it. Now the next piece is just a little bit more different topic, so we spoke about it last week already about captured souls, so forget about that a moment. But what we've concluded thus far is that every one of us, by virtue of being a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, have inherited a godly soul. Or ein sof melubash beguf. Even if you're from a very low soul level, it doesn't matter. It's got the Chachma light in it. Mm-hmm. This is the key to understanding the natural love, which we have. We're going to really, really develop this theme of what is the implications of having Or Ein Sof, infinite light within your soul. That's going to lead us to the natural love. It's going to help us understand the natural love, because I'm going to just give a quick clue here as we wrap up. As long as we relate to God as some very far distant entity, some cookie monster from that I'm not even sure I believe in, whether it actually exists or not, it's difficult to really have a meaningful relationship with that. But when you start to realize that God is not anything outside of me, is not some wicked, sadistic taskmaster that loves making my life miserable by ruining all my vacations with Shabbos laws and ruining all my travels with kosher laws and ruining my marriage prospects with all the law. Instead of looking at God as some sort of sadistic power freak, right? You look at God and say, wow, this is really me. It's who I actually am. And now you start to realize that being true to thine self, which I don't even know where that verse comes from, maybe New Testament, I don't know. But being true to yourself, means digging deeper and recognizing that you are literally cutting off your nose to spite your face when you are rejecting the Torah. Because whether you like it or not, this is who you are. You may not realize it, it's who you are. So now we're getting a little inkling of what that natural love is. Right? The problem is that it's hidden. Why is it hidden? because we have an extraordinarily smart evil inclination. We're going to learn about him more in chapters 24 and 25. But this is going to be just an absolutely majestic build-up towards what we're going to touch on is the themes of God's unity. We're going to get a magnificent understanding on what God really is and isn't, so that we can get a better foothold in what our natural love is. So hopefully, at a moment's notice, you'll be able to arouse your natural love from a state of dormant hiddenness to a state of awareness, to be able to guide yourself towards self-mastery, as opposed to going through the prolonged meditative process of arousing new emotions. And we'll call it a day.
Thank you.
Wow, that was really good.
Thank you, that was great.
That was a great.
This is the second installment of chapter 18. We'll have to carry next week with the third. Yasher Koach, everybody. Thank you for joining me today.